I moved to Colonia 3 Cruces a few weeks ago. My name is Clara, and I thought this would be a fresh start. I'm 32 now. I took a teaching position here, hoping a small town would inspire my writing. The streets looked lovely. Flowers bloomed everywhere, and I could smell homemade meals wafting from the houses. My second night in the bungalow was strange. I got comfortable in bed, convinced this place would work for me. Then I heard scratching noises coming from the walls. At first, I thought it was just the house settling, but it didn't stop. Those sounds turned into little jabs of fear that nagged at me. I barely slept that night. As days passed, things got weirder. I noticed shadows darting outside my windows. They didn't feel right. Books I had sorted on my shelves began to move. I could have sworn I had placed them perfectly, and now they were all mixed up. I doubted myself. Maybe I was just imagining things. Still, I felt watched, like something hovered just out of sight. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, I caught a glimpse of a figure in my yard. My heart raced. It seemed real, but I tried to convince myself it was a trick of the light. I didn't really have anyone to ask about these things. I felt isolated with my fears. I told myself I was just tired or stressed, but a part of me was scared about what was happening. That night, I decided to face the noises. I stood up, heart pounding. I tiptoed to the wall and pressed my ear against it. The scratching grew louder. It felt like something was right there, just inches away. I wanted to ask what it wanted, but I couldn't. I felt if I spoke, something terrible would happen. Then I had this moment. I turned around, and in the dim light, I saw something move. I blinked, and it was gone. I wanted to laugh it off, but I couldn't. Every nudge of fear in my gut got heavier. Why was this happening to me? I kept asking myself. I didn't understand. I doubted anyone else could see or hear these things. I felt like I was trapped in a puzzle where the pieces were all wrong. Everything felt strange, and I worried I couldn't stay in this house much longer. I wanted answers, but where could I find them? Then something chilled me to my core. I heard that scratching again. This time it seemed to come from right behind me. My stomach dropped like a weight in the dark. It felt wrong and sudden. I turned slowly, every instinct screaming to run. The scratching continued, relentless. I took a shaky breath. I couldn't ignore it anymore. Whatever was in this house was asking me to listen, but I was terrified of what I would find. I held my breath, feeling the air thicken around me as I turned. The scratching became a rhythmic pattern, like a language I didn't understand. I felt frozen, transported to some bizarre realm between reality and nightmare. With each scrape, dread coiled tighter in my chest. My instincts pushed me toward the door, but curiosity tugged at my feet. What if I was missing something important? I hesitated, heart racing like a drum. Finally, I steeled myself and crept back to the wall. I pressed my ear against the wood again, hoping to gain some clarity. Instead, I heard a whisper, faint and barely audible. "Help me." It sent shivers through me, the kind that come from a primal fear. I had to think logically. Perhaps it was a trick of the mind, a projection of my anxiety. But how could I deny that voice? I backed away slowly, scanning the room. The shadows seemed less benign now, more like lurking figures waiting for something to unfold. I flipped on the light, and the static crackle of furnishings returned to normalcy. But my heart still pounded. I needed to get out. I decided to head towards the neighbor's house. I figured maybe someone had more knowledge about this place. Remembering the friendly face I met when I first arrived, I gathered my courage and made my way to the front door. Outside, the cool night air did little to soothe my nerves. Just as I reached the neighbor's yard, I felt a shiver run down my spine, and I heard that scratching again. It was no longer coming from the house, but followed me, an echo of my silent fears. I glanced back at my bungalow. The moon cast a harsh light. The windows were darker, like eyes staring into my soul, watching. I knocked on the door, desperation replacing hesitation. A kind woman answered almost immediately. "Clara, what's wrong? You look pale." "I heard something strange in my house. I thought maybe it was just me, but—" I shuffled my feet, not wanting to sound foolish. "I need your help." She looked worried. "Come in, let's talk." As we sat in her cozy living room, filled with laughter and warmth, I felt safer. I explained everything, the scratching, the whispers, and even the shadows. The longer I spoke, the more I realized how ridiculous it sounded, yet I could see concern growing on her face. "I've heard things too," she whispered. "Sometimes at night or when I'm alone. It's not just you, Clara. There's something about this neighborhood." Her voice trailed off as she gazed out the window, the weight of truth heavy between us. Something lay in wait, and until we uncovered it, I could sense that neither of us would be free from the looming shadows. Just then, I saw something moving outside, a shadow taller than before. My breath hitched. "What is that?" I whispered, grabbing her arm. She turned to me, eyes wide with fear. "I don't know." Then everything went dark. I stumbled back, my heart pounding in the silence that enveloped us. The warm glow of her living room disappeared, replaced by an oppressive darkness. I fumbled for the light switch, but no flicker of electricity responded. I could hear Clara's breathing quicken beside me, a shared panic threading through the air. "Clara?" I called, my voice shaking. Are you okay? Stay close. I can't see anything." Then a cold breeze swept through the room, rustling curtains I couldn't see. I felt a chill run down my spine, and I instinctively reached for her hand. I had to keep us both grounded in the unknown. But as I turned, I sensed something moving, an inky figure in the darkness. Panic ignited within me. "Clara," I hissed, trying to contain my rising fear. "We need to get out of here." With my heart racing, I took a step toward what I thought was the door. "This way," I said, but my voice trembled. I couldn't tell where I was going. The darkness swallowed all direction. It was as if the shadows had no need for light and were alive, shifting just beyond my reach. A loud crash echoed outside, sounding as if something heavy had fallen. My breath quickened further. "Did you hear that? We have to go," I urged. Then Clara's grip tightened on my hand. "Wait, listen." Through the void, I heard it again, the scratching. It was louder now, clawing its way up from the floorboards to the walls. I felt the heat of my fear rise up, fighting against the suffocating darkness. "Is it coming for us?" Before she could answer, the sound abruptly stopped. A silence so profound echoed in my ears, and for a moment my terror was replaced by an eerie calm. Then I heard a voice, distant but familiar, whispering my name. "Clara." It was unmistakable. "Who's there?" I shouted, letting go of Clara's hand. My voice was shaky with dread. "Show yourself." The moment I said it, the darkness lifted, revealing the outline of a person standing by the window. But no one had come in. The room was still empty except for us. I blinked, and just like that, the figure was gone. The shadows seemed to shift again, as if they were mocking my confusion, hiding whatever it was I should have seen. "Did you see that?" I gasped, scanning the room, desperately searching for something solid to latch onto, some reality to hold onto. Clara shook her head, her face pale. "I didn't, but—" She took a deep breath. "Let's get to the door and leave." Just as we moved, the lights flickered back on. The room brightened in an instant, dispelling the dark. I turned to Clara, relieved but still trembling. But the relief was short-lived. The living room was just as we left it, but now it felt different, as if a weight had shifted. The walls seemed to breathe, and my instincts screamed at me that we weren't alone. "Clara, we need to go back to my house," I said, urgency spilling into my words. "I need to understand what's happening." "Are you sure?" she asked, uncertainty lacing her tone. "What if it's worse there?" "I can't ignore it. Whatever it is, it's connected to me," I insisted. When I looked back at her, her expression changed to something serious. "Then we go together. I won't let you face this alone." As we stepped outside into the cool night air, the shadows stretched long and haunting. Just before entering my yard, I felt a chill race down my back, and I turned. That silhouette from the window reappeared, standing beneath the streetlight. I squinted, trying to make sense of it, but it vanished again. "Did you see that?" I whispered to Clara. "Yes," she said, grabbing my arm tightly, "and I think it wants to show us something." We both knew we had to find out what it was. We hurried through the quiet streets, the tension between us crackling like electricity. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching, that whatever we had sensed in Clara's house was still lingering close, waiting for the right moment to pounce. In my gut, I felt it wasn't done with us yet. "Do you think we're safe at your house?" Clara asked, glancing over her shoulder as we walked. "I don't know," I admitted, "but we can look for answers there. Maybe it's tied to my family or this neighborhood." As we reached my porch, I hesitated. The house loomed before us, whispering of memories I had long buried. I took a deep breath, unlocking the door. Once inside, the familiar creaks of the floorboards greeted us, but they felt different now, almost eerie. The shadows inside danced in the corners, heavier than before. "Do you have any flashlights?" Clara asked, looking around nervously. "Yeah, in the kitchen." I headed toward the darkened room, lit only by the glow of the moon through the window. As I rummaged through the drawer, I caught a glimpse of a family photo. It was taken during happier times, smiling faces, bright eyes, but as I picked it up, the room grew colder. "Everything okay?" Clara's voice broke through, but I didn't respond. I could feel something shift behind me, as if the air thickened. The hair on the back of my neck stood up. But the words were caught in my throat as I turned. There was a reflection in the window, another shadow moving, creeping closer. I squinted, part of me wanting to deny it, yet something pushed me to step outside. I grabbed Clara's wrist, pulling her with me. "Wait," she said, her eyes wide. "What are you doing?" "I saw something. We need to check," I replied, my voice shaky as I swung the door open. The night closed in as we moved towards the back of the house, where the yard faded into darkness. I could hear the wind whispering, almost like it wanted to tell us something. And then, there it was again. The shadow, it darted behind a tree, a flicker too quick for my brain to process. "Did you see that?" I asked Clara, my heart racing. "Yes," she replied, her breath coming in short gasps. "It felt wrong." We stepped closer to where I'd seen it, my pulse pounding in my ears. "What do you want from us?" I shouted into the darkness, though I was terrified of the answer. Suddenly, something caught my eye. An old wooden box, half buried in the ground near the roots of the tree. I hadn't noticed it before. It seemed out of place. With trembling hands, I went down on one knee, brushing dirt away. "What is it?" Clara asked, leaning closer. "I don't know." I pulled at the lid. It was stuck, but with some force it creaked open. Inside lay a collection of faded photographs, letters tied with frayed string, and something that looked like an old key. I felt the shadows around us shift again, closing in as if they were eager for the secrets we might uncover. That's when I saw it. My name on one of the letters, scrawled in a familiar handwriting. "What the—" My voice caught. "Is that—" Clara's eyes widened, fear mingling with curiosity. "Yes." I fumbled for the letter, but as I touched it, darkness swept over the yard. The air turned electric. Instinctively, we fell back, hearts racing. Clara's hand shot up, pointing. Look! The silhouette was back, standing at the edge of the trees, watching us. The night deepened, and I felt the urgency clawing at me. I needed to figure out what it all meant. But now, whatever was watching was right there, and it wasn't just looking, it was waiting. I couldn't take my eyes off the shadow. It stood motionless, its figure blending into the darkness of the trees, as if it were part of the night itself. "What do we do?" Clara whispered, pulling closer to me. I opened my mouth to say something, but no words came out. My heart pounded in my chest, and a cold sweat broke out on my forehead. In that moment, I felt paralyzed, as though the darkness had wrapped itself around me, refusing to let go. "Maybe we should go back inside," Clara suggested, her voice trembling. "No," I said, gripping the old letter tightly. "I need answers. If this is tied to my family—" She frowned, clearly hesitant. "But what if it's dangerous?" Before I could respond, the shadow took a step forward, and a chill swept through the air. I felt like I was staring into the eyes of something ancient, something deeply unsettling. Then, like a splash of cold water, the shadow faded. My breath caught. What just happened? "It just vanished," Clara said, eyes darting around. "Did you see where it went?" I shook my head, trying to steady my racing thoughts. "No, but it's still here. I can feel it." As if to punctuate my words, a rustle sounded behind us. Both of us turned sharply, hearts leaping into our throats. Wind gusted through the trees, carrying whispers that were indecipherable but chilling. I had to focus. "Let's look at the box. There might be something there that can help us." We returned to the wooden box and knelt beside it, the weight of the night heavy upon us. The air felt thick, suffocating almost. I picked up the letters, flipping them over in my hands. One older letter caught my attention. "Where do you think this leads?" I whispered, glancing at Clara. "Maybe someone can help," she suggested. "Should we read it?" I examined the handwriting. It was full of loops and swirls, an elegant script that felt familiar, but I couldn't place it. It might explain why our names are here, why we're involved in all this. With a shaky hand, I unfolded the letter, revealing a message written decades ago. As I began to read, the words jumped out at me. "To those who find this, know that the key unlocks a truth that must remain hidden. The shadows hold the answers, but tread carefully, for they demand a price." A feeling of dread washed over me. "What price?" I murmured. Just then, a sudden movement behind the tree caught my eye again. The figure reappeared, this time stepping forward into the faint glow of light. I felt my breath hitch in my throat. And it wasn't just a shadow. A face emerged from the darkness. It was gaunt, hollowed, with eyes that bore into my soul. I felt the air grow heavier, the weight of it pressing down on us. "Leave now," it rasped, voice like gravel. "You shouldn't have dug into the past." Clara's grip tightened around my arm. "What do we do now?" But as questions raced through my mind, I realized that we had wandered too deep into territory that should have stayed buried. I looked back at the letter, knowing its secrets now held even greater consequences. "Run," I said, tugging Clara's hand. We bolted back towards the house, the breath of the unknown biting at our heels. What awaited us inside could be just as dangerous, but I felt we had no choice. We needed to unravel the mystery, even if it meant facing the darkness head-on. As we reached the back door, panic surged through me. I yanked it open and rushed inside, pulling Clara with me. The familiar warmth of the house was a stark contrast to the chill we had just felt outside. But it felt wrong now, tainted somehow. "Lock the door," I commanded, still breathing heavily. Clara did as I asked, securing the entrance with shaking hands. I could hear the thud of my heart echoing in my ears as I scanned the shadowy corners of the room, expecting something to leap out at any moment. "What did we just see?" Clara's voice trembled. Her wide eyes mirrored my fear. "I don't know, but that wasn't just a shadow. It felt alive." My mind raced through the implications of the letter and the warning from the figure. Something dark was binding our family to this place. My gaze landed on the wooden box. "We need to look again," I said, moving toward it. Inside, it felt like a portal to a world I wasn't ready to face. The forgotten items seemed to pulse with hidden energy. As I rifled through the contents, I paused at a small, ornate key. It glinted under the dim light. "Clara, look at this." I picked it up, feeling its might, even though it felt deceptively ordinary. "What do you think it opens?" she asked, her curiosity creeping back in. "I don't know, but it must be important. That letter said something about a key." I turned it in my hands, inspecting the intricate design. The old nettle was cool against my skin, but it seemed to hum with unspeakable potential. Suddenly, I remembered the attic, a dark place I had rarely visited. It was filled with old family items and memories, all buried beneath layers of dust. "There's an old trunk up there. Maybe this key fits it." Without waiting for Clara's agreement, I made my way toward the stairs. The floorboards creaked under my feet, a reminder of how quiet the house used to be. Now it felt alive, almost as if it were holding its breath, watching our every move. Clara followed me, her footsteps hesitant and cautious. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" she asked, anxiety coating her words. I paused halfway up the stairs. "I have to know what's hidden up there. This could be connected to everything." Once we reached the attic door, I took a deep breath. Just as I was about to open it, a loud bang echoed behind us. My heart dropped. It sounded like something had crashed to the floor below. "Did you hear that?" Clara gasped. "Stay here," I said, my voice low but firm. I stepped back, rising to my toes to peer over the banister. The glow of the street lamp outside filtered in through the window, casting long shadows that danced across the walls. My body froze as I spotted the living room. A piece of furniture had been knocked over, but the rest of the room was eerily still. I turned back toward Clara. "We need to check it out. It could be something." Before I could finish my sentence, the attic door creaked open, despite the lack of a breeze. Darkness spilled into the hallway, a palpable force that pulled at us. "Let's go," I breathed, feeling the gravity of the moment weighing heavily on my shoulders. But as we stepped into the shadowy attic, something unexpectedly glimmered in the dark. It was all-consuming, and I felt we were stepping into something much larger than just our family secrets. Then, out of the corner of my eye, I saw movement. The air thickened around us, and with it, a new presence emerged. The air grew heavy, almost suffocating. Clara and I exchanged startled glances. I took a small step forward, my heart racing. The glimmer caught my eye again, shifting as if it were alive. "What is that?" Clara whispered, her voice barely audible. "I'm not sure," I replied, "but we have to find out." With careful steps, I moved deeper into the attic. The ancient floorboards groaned under our weight, echoing our shared uncertainty. Shadows flickered, creating shapes that danced along the walls. As we drew closer, I could make out what was causing the light. A small, ornate mirror sitting atop an old trunk. It reflected not just our faces, but wisps of something strange. "Is it just me, or does it feel like it's watching us?" Clara asked, hugging her arms to her chest. I nodded slowly, unable to shake off the sensation that we weren't alone. The mirror's surface rippled, distorting our reflections. I reached out, not fully aware of what I was doing. Suddenly, everything shifted. The mirror glowed brighter, and the room spun around us. I stumbled back, almost losing my footing. "What is happening?" I gasped. "Get away from it!" Clara shouted, pulling me back as the mirror pulsed with an eerie light. I felt a cold draft sweep through, chilling me to the bone. My skin prickled with 1,000 tiny needles. "Maybe it's just a trick of the light," I muttered, but doubt gnawed at me. Then something changed. The air grew still. I felt the atmosphere shift into something thick and foreboding. A figure emerged within the mirror, just a shadow at first, but it started to coalesce into a shape that looked like someone I recognized. "Mom?" The word escaped my lips before I could stop it. Confusion twisted in my gut. Wasn't she gone? "No," Clara said, gripping my arm tightly. "That can't be her." The figure in the mirror twisted, its features obscured but unmistakable, a dark outline of someone I thought I would never see again. The image warped and convulsed. I felt an overwhelming urge to reach out to it. "Don't!" Clara cried. Her fear grated against my instincts. But I moved closer again, drawn by an unseen force. I reached out towards the glass. Then everything changed. The bright light swallowed us whole, and I felt my body jerk as if yanked by an invisible string. The attic faded away, walls blurred, sounds muted to a whisper. And just like that, I was standing in a different place entirely. The world was dark again, but something flickered in the distance. My heart pounded. "Where are we?" Clara's voice quaked beside me, breaking through the murky confusion. I turned, ready to assure her I didn't know either, but the reality settled in. Something ancient and malevolent shrouded us in this new environment. "Stay close," I warned. A looming figure stood just out of sight, barely illuminated by that distant glow. Then a whisper disrupted the silence. "You shouldn't have come here." Fear gripped my chest. In that chilling moment, I realized we had crossed a threshold we could never return from. The darkness thickened around Clara and me. I squinted, trying to make sense of the shadows shifting in the distance. The glow complemented the heavy silence, but did little to chase away the gnawing fear inside me. I could feel my pulse racing, each heartbeat echoing louder in my ears. "Maybe we should go back," Clara suggested, her voice shaky but firm. I shook my head, unwilling to retreat now. "What if we can find a way out?" I whispered, though my own uncertainty twinged at the back of my mind. We moved cautiously toward the flickering light, each step hesitant. It looked like an unsteady flame, casting long fingers of light that danced like phantoms on the walls. As we got closer, the outline of what seemed like a door came into view, slightly ajar. It had the same ornate design as the mirror we had just touched. "Should we?" Clara hesitated, glancing back the way we had come. I nodded, despite a growing knot of dread in my stomach. "We'll just check it out." I reached out, pushing the door open. The creak of old hinges sounded loud in the stillness. Beyond the door lay a small room cluttered with dusty furniture and boxes, reminders of lives once lived. The glow came from a faint lantern hanging from the ceiling, and its light skittered across the walls, draping everything in a weird glow. "What are we looking for?" Clara asked. "I don't know," I admitted, stepping inside. "But if this is connected to the mirror, we need to find out what it means." Suddenly, something shifted in the corner of the room. A shadow darted behind a stack of boxes. I felt my breath hitch. "Did you see that?" I managed to stammer. Clara nodded, her eyes wide. "We should go, now." Before I could respond, a loud crash echoed through the space. We both jumped, our eyes darting toward the source of the noise. A toppled box, spilling its contents onto the floor. I squinted, attempting to see past the darkness. "Let's get out of here," Clara urged. "Yes, but—" I froze. A small object lay among the scattered debris, something shiny. I stepped closer, my curiosity overpowering my sense of caution. As I bent down, I picked up a pendant. It was identical to the one my mother used to wear. "Where did you find that?" Clara's voice was sharp. "I don't know," I murmured, my fingers tracing the intricate design. But if this belonged to her... A sudden wind whipped through the room, sending cold chills racing up my spine. Clara grabbed my arm, pulling me back, just as the door slammed shut behind us. "Now what?" she exclaimed, panic rising in her voice. Before I could answer, the lantern flickered violently, and the air crackled with energy. I turned, feeling the familiar oppressive presence returning. "We need to get out," I shouted, searching for another exit. That's when I noticed, standing behind Clara, a figure was materializing, its face void of features, but its presence unmistakable. It was watching us, and I felt the cold grip of terror clenching around my heart again. And then it spoke, not with words, but with a sensation that echoed in my mind. "You shouldn't have come. You cannot leave." I felt the ground vibrate underneath me as dread washed over us both like a tidal wave. The figure loomed closer, its formless shape swirling like smoke. I could barely breathe, my instincts screaming at me to run. But where? The door was firmly shut, and my legs felt rooted to the spot. "Clara," I whispered, trying to keep my voice steady, "we need to find a way out." Her eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape. "What if it's a trick? It's trying to scare us." I nodded, but the chill in the air told me it was far from just a scare. I raised the pendant, the only source of warmth amidst the growing fear. This has to mean something. Maybe it can help us. The lantern's light flickered again, casting twisted shadows. The sensation from the figure inside my mind expanded, pulsing like a heartbeat. It wanted something from us, something I couldn't grasp. I tried to remember anything my mother had said about her pendant. Was it a key? A marker of some kind? Just as I felt the weight of the figure's gaze intensifying, a loud crash erupted behind me. Clara screamed. I spun around to find a bookcase had toppled over, revealing a narrow passageway beside the stacked boxes. It hadn't been there a moment ago. "Go!" I yelled, grabbing Clara's hand and sprinting toward the opening. The figure hissed, a sound both terrifying and electric, ricocheting off the walls. We ducked into the passage, the walls tightening around us. I pushed onward, the pendant warm against my palm. "We can't stop," I urged Clara, but even as I said it, I felt a tug of uncertainty. "Where are we going?" she asked, panic lacing her voice. "I don't know, just away from that thing." The tunnel sloped down steeply, and uneven stones jutted out at odd angles. The air grew colder, thicker, as I glanced back. The opening behind us seemed to shimmer, as if the figure had followed us through. "Clara, we have to hurry," I urged as I picked up speed, my breath coming in short gasps. Each footfall echoed in the confined space, heightening the urgency to escape whatever was pursuing us. Then everything went dark. The lantern above flickered one last time and died, plunging us into absolute blackness. I stumbled, losing my grip on Clara's hand for a terrifying second. "Clara!" I called out, heart racing, panic threatening to engulf me. "Here!" Her voice seemed far away, muffled. I reached out blindly, my fingers brushing against the cool stone wall. I felt a chill crawl up my spine, then heard it again, the hiss, like the whispering wind through the trees, but more alive, more demanding. "Stay close," I shouted, straining to see anything, to find a way forward. My other senses heightened. I could hear Clara's frantic breaths. That's when I felt a surge of energy, warmer than the pendant had been. It pulsed in my hand, guiding me, pulling me deeper into the darkness. "This way," I called, shifting my focus. But then I heard it, a soft, childlike giggle from somewhere ahead. My stomach twisted. "Did you hear that?" I asked Clara, keeping my voice low. "Yeah," she whispered back, fear creeping into her tone. It felt wrong. I took a cautious step forward. "We should—" A cold hand brushed against my shoulder, and I spun around, my heart pounding in my chest. "Someone's behind us!" I shouted, panic surging anew. But as I turned, the dark passage swirled, presenting only the shadows of our frantic escape. "We need to move, now!" Our only path grew narrower as a new fear entered my mind. Who was playing with us here? And more importantly, why? We continued through the constricting tunnel, the air thick and oppressive. I could hear Clara's breath hitching beside me, echoing the panic clawing at my chest. "What if we're trapped?" she whispered, and I could hear the tremor in her voice. "Don't think like that," I replied, trying to maintain some sense of calm. My heart raced, but I forged ahead, clutching the warm pendant like a lifeline. It pulsed in rhythm with my quickening heartbeat, and an instinct told me it was important, maybe our only chance at escape. Suddenly, the tunnel began to widen. The soft glow returned, flickering up ahead like dying embers. I pressed forward, curiosity pushing me onward, the darkness receding with each step until we emerged into a large room lit by an unseen source. "Where are we?" Clara gasped, her eyes scanning the shadows clinging to the corners of the room. It was grand, yet derelict, with an old table at the center, covered in dust and cobwebs. "Looks like this place hasn't seen light in a long time," I muttered, moving cautiously toward the table. The walls were lined with dusty portraits and faded memories, people I didn't recognize, staring down at us with hollow gazes. I felt a peculiar mix of nostalgia and terror. As I approached, I noticed several objects strewn across the tabletop. Faded photographs, old keys, and trinkets that looked significant. I picked up a photograph that caught my eye. It was a picture of a family that looked disjointed and out of time. The faces hauntingly familiar, yet skewed, as if they were looking at me from 1 foot away while standing leagues apart. "This seems impossible," Clara said, glancing around as though searching for an exit. "What is this place?" "I don't know, but—" My voice trailed off as I felt that familiar chill crawl up my spine. The sensation of being watched returned stronger than before. I looked up, and for a brief second caught a glimpse of darkness gathering in the far corner of the room, lurking just out of the reach of the flickering light. "Clara, we shouldn't stay here," I warned, gripping the pendant tightly. "Let's look for another way out." Just then, the air changed. It became electric, charged with anticipation, as though the very walls were holding their breath. "You shouldn't have come," whispered a voice, not from outside, but inside my mind, invasive and insistent. Clara turned toward me, eyes wide with dread. "Did you hear that?" "Yeah, I did," I admitted, feeling cold sweat bead on my forehead. "But I don't know where it's coming from." Before I could comprehend what was happening, a gust swept through the room, scattering the papers and sending the lantern swinging violently. "We need to go," I shouted, pulling her toward the door we'd come through. As I turned, I caught sight of movement again. And there it was, the shadowy figure from earlier, coalescing out of the dark, an embodiment of fear that had haunted us this entire time. It glided closer, emanating a sense of power that froze me in place. "What do you want?" I raised my voice, desperation coating my words. I wasn't sure I'd get a response, but we had to know. "Return what was taken," the figure rasped, and for a moment I thought I saw the outlines of faces flicker across its form. Faces of those I could almost, but couldn't quite recognize. "Return what?" I asked, my voice a whisper now. "Your past haunts you," it pronounced, its voice echoing around us like a cruel wind. "Uncover the truth, and you may find your way home." "Leave us alone!" Clara yelled, instinctively stepping in front of me. The audacity in her voice surprised me, but it also ignited a spark of hope. The figure pulsed at her words, vaporous and vibrant. "You cannot hide from the shadows. The truth lies buried." Suddenly, a rush of energy enveloped us. I stumbled back, feeling Clara's hand slip from mine as the room shifted, blurring and dissolving like a dream upon waking. "Clara!" I screamed, reaching out desperately for her. I felt her grasp my wrist, and for a heartbeat, I thought we might break free together. But then, everything went dark. I blinked into the emptiness, disoriented. As my vision adjusted, I found myself standing on the same street from before, under the pale glow of the street lamp. Clara was beside me, staring wide-eyed at the rows of houses, still and quiet, but something felt different. "What just happened?" she asked, confusion etched across her face. "I think we got away," I said, my heart beating a frantic tattoo against my ribs. But the shadows lingered at the edge of my periphery, shifting like dancing phantoms. I felt the weight of the figure's words pressing down on my shoulders, an unshakable truth lingering in my mind. "Do you think it's over?" Clara whispered, fear tinged with relief. "I don't know," I replied, truthfully, glancing at the darkened porch of my bungalow. "I know we escaped for now, but those shadows, they won't just disappear." I glanced back toward Clara, the night air heavy with questions left unanswered. I could feel the pull of something deeper, an unexplainable connection binding me to this place that felt both familiar and frighteningly foreign. "I moved here for a new start," I murmured, hoping to convince myself, "but it seems like the past never really leaves." We stood there in that still night, two souls connected by a shared experience, yet feeling more isolated than ever. I longed to reach into the past, to know the truth, but the shadows were waiting for another chance, waiting to consume everything I thought I knew. And with that thought, I turned and walked away, knowing the echoes of the shadows would stay with me long after the night was over, lingering just out of sight, ready for the next chapter to begin.